I'm just a little bit late, just finishing up with another meeting, but welcome everybody. Um, this is our first director's call of the year. It looks like we have about 28 folks here, so a nice crew. Want this to try and be informational and also an opportunity to ask questions and build some communication channels for us. And ultimately, we're going to dig into some district data overview. And I see Susie's here and Sheila, and I'm just going to turn it over to you. But thanks for being here.
All right. And then we're a couple more people coming in, and we'll go ahead and get started. So you should have received an email saying that your district data is your preliminary district data is uploaded into SpedLink. You can go in and access your report cards. And so today we're going to do a quick overview of the district data and then open it up for questions. And Susie Wagner from Data Driven Enterprises. We should call her she's part of WDE now, whether she wants to be or not. So, all right, Susie, you want to take it over?
Sure. So as Sheila indicated, your reports are available on SpedLink. So I'm going to give you a quick overview on how to access them. I know a lot of you have been doing that for years. You don't need the overview, but just in case you might, and there's a couple new reports and organization. So Sheila and I wanted to go over it, which I will explain that new report organization. And Sheila has a couple other topics she wants to touch on. So there's several different types of reports you can download from SpedLink. Of course, you're most interested in the report cards to see how your performance is on the indicators. Then we have indicator-specific reports. We have other reports. And let me just go to that list directly. So I mentioned the report cards. You'll want to download each of these three. So we have several indicator reports. The indicator reports are organized by numbers. So if you see in report 1, it's indicator 1. Report 3, it's indicator 3. So we did that last year. Hopefully that helps a little bit in terms of finding the right report. The curiosity report are things that we started doing this a few years ago that just points out some curiosities in the data. So for example, it lists your students who took the alternate, but who do not have a primary disability code of CD or MU, for example. Or it lists kids in restricted environments. It lists speech language kids who are getting a related service of speech language. So things that are just puzzling that we just want to point out that you might want to follow up on. And then we have these other topic area reports that relate to indicator performance, such as attendance rates, related and direct services, identification, and demographics.
So Susie,
yes.
One of the things that we want to remind people is on those curiosity reports. Those are sometimes one of the better ones for you to go back and look at, because sometimes that's where we find some of our data errors, because that's how it pops up as curious. So I encourage you to go back and look at those, especially if you are a new director or if you're semi-new to your position, to kind of look at those and see whether or not there's any potential data errors that might be happening.
Okay. And I'll get logged into SpedLink in a moment. And here is the URL. Dina, if you want to paste that in the chat box, that would be great. If you need any technical help with SpedLink, contact Catherine at Data Driven Enterprises. But any general help, contact Sheila. Sheila said that each of the directors should have a login to SpedLink. But if you don't, contact Sheila and she can help you out with that. So let's go ahead and I will get logged in here. So once you are logged in, what you'll want to do to get to your reports is go to reporting and then click on static. And then once you are here, you will see that there's several years. So if you're interested in your 08-09 reports, you can find those, but I think you will be definitely interested in 24-25. So you'll want to make sure the 24-25 year is selected. And then you can either select the district or the statewide. Now, you won't have these options of preschool, but if you want to look at the statewide reports, that's what you'll click on. Otherwise, for your own reports, you'll click on district. So then you will see a list of the reports available. In years past, all of your indicator reports other than 8 and 14 have been grouped together, and same with these other topic areas. And we thought it might be easier to find the report you want if we separated them out. So if you should look at your report card and say, I'm really puzzled about my indicator 5 data. I want to do a drill down on my indicator 5 data. You can come to the indicator 5 report and look at it. So this way you don't have to search through a 200-page document trying to find your indicator 5 report. It should be much easier. Now, the purpose of today is not for me to go through these reports and explain them. So I just want to point that out. I'm not going to go over the reports other than to say that you can identify the indicator you're interested in just by clicking on the indicator report. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. So, but what I want to do now is, and I do want to say that when you click on a report, in order to look at it, you have to click on this PDF report and a browser will pop up with that report. If it doesn't pop up, chances are you have the DDE website blocked. And so there should be a message up here saying, we've blocked this. Do you want to unblock it? So you want to unblock it so you see your reports. Another thing I want to point out that often happens is once you've opened one report and then you want to open up another one, it looks like nothing happened. And that's just because your report got buried under here. And so usually what I do is once I've opened one, I might download it, look at it, but then I close this window. So when I click on this again, it just pops up right up front. Sheila, anything else I should mention about just finding the reports and downloading?
Yes, but not necessarily about reports. Do you mind showing them, because we have several new directors on, around how they can find the indicator 8 and their response rates?
Oh, okay. So, and it's okay if I share everyone's results, like all the districts listed?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So for those of you who are in the process of administering indicator 8 and you want to keep tabs on your results, so if you go to collections, so we were in the reporting, but if you go to collections and click on indicator 8, and you'll see the 25-26 indicator 8. And you can also look at previous years, but if you're wanting to monitor, you can go here. Here's where you download your materials. And let me move this. You, of course, you'll only see your own district, if I recall correctly. But once you do that, you can download materials to administer it. Sheila, anything I say that's wrong, please speak up. So she's the indicator 8 expert. But you'll want to download your materials so you can start handing it out, whether in person or via mail. And then you can look at reports. So is this what you wanted me to share, Sheila, how they can monitor?
Because response rate is part of their determinations.
Okay.
They should know how to monitor that.
So you'll want to check your response rate. Once you've started administering your survey, you can check this out throughout the year. And it's still the beginning of the year. So statewide, we just have a response rate of 2.56%. Last year, I think it ended up over 30%. But this will just help you to identify your district. You'll just see your district results. And then you can see if your response rate matches what you think it should match.
And remember, for determinations, you're shooting for 20% to get the 1 point. So per district. So,
Yeah,
Thank-
so a good thing to pay attention to.
so it is, I have to laugh because I tell Susie that one of the things I do is almost every morning I get in and see the state's response rate around indicator 8. So that tells you how much of a life I have. Anyway,
And
any
it gets very
questions about that?
interesting in April. Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask a
Any
question about,
Yes,
so those, like I'm looking at Johnson counties right now, and so are the number of respondents that are showing up there today basically from the beginning of this school year?
yes.
Okay,
So the 15, so the students with disabilities in your population came from the June 684, correct, Susie?
Well, I believe it's actually from the fall
684.
684. So it'd be fall of 2024. Let me check something out if I go to the
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
yep.
Yeah, so it's, yes, it's still last year's data because we don't have any new data yet.
Yeah.
And so we will update it once we get the latest fall 684 file.
Catherine will update it, probably, we usually get it around December and
Yeah.
then, yeah,
Okay.
all right.
So then if we go back to reporting, I mentioned that one thing you'll be very interested in is your report card. So for sure you'll want to download your private report card. And I'm going to look at an example report card that I downloaded because there's something new on here this year. So when you download yours, you of course will see your denominators and numerators. I just blanked them out so no one could figure out, who I was sharing. But you'll want to look at your data. You'll want to look at your rate, whether or not you met the target. And most importantly, look at this data and say, you know what? I don't think this graduation rate's correct. I better follow up with Sheila. Or I don't think my indicator 4 data is correct. Whatever it is, make sure you look at all your scores. And if anything looks incorrect, follow up with Sheila and let her know so that we can dig into the data and make sure we have populated the correct data. One thing new, Go
Or
ahead.
Susan Shipley.
Yes. One thing new we added this year is 20B, valid and reliable. So those of you who've been around a long time might remember way back in 07, 08, 09, OSEP used to require states to report out on valid and reliable. Now OSEP requires states to look at valid and reliability for making determinations, but we don't have to report it out as an indicator. However, given that we are doing the valid and reliable data collection as part of the self-assessment, given that starting last year, we're using this data as part of your determinations, we thought we might as well put it on the report card to give you a heads up. So this particular district, so the target is no. Did the district have any inaccurate data? No is what we want. If you have a yes here, that means that based on the data we're looking at, where, for example, we're looking at whether or not if the environment code is a restrictive setting, but the service school ID is not, or vice versa. If we see any of those data curiosities, that tells us we think you might have inaccurate data. So this is yes, that means you don't meet the target. You should be looking at your self-assessment now and working on it. And there are several valid and reliable components. Once you complete that portion of the self-assessment, Sheila and her team will look at it, look at your reasons, and this score might change. So currently you might have a yes here, and it might change to a no depending on your self-assessment results. So be sure to look at that. And then also another reminder, indicator 11 is preliminary. So if you have anything less than 100% rate here, that means you should also be completing your self-assessment surrounding indicator 11. Sheila and her team will look at your reasons for a late initial evaluation And as such, this score might increase if you have it below 100%. Sheila, is there anything else in particular that you want them to look at on their report card?
The other one that frequently we see people have questions around is indicator 13. So ensure you look at your indicator 13 results and that it matches what you think it should.
Okay. Okay, I'll go back to my PowerPoint. Let's see here. Okay, are you seeing my PowerPoint, Sheila?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let me make sure I went over everything. Just a reminder, indicators 1, 2, and 4 are based on 23-24 data. They're a data lag. Everything else is 24-25 data.
Graduation.
Yes. Email Sheila by November 14th with any concerns you have about the accuracy of the data on your report card. Sheila, these were your items you were going to discuss.
So as Susie said, we are in the middle of the self-assessment window. It is open. It is due to be completed by close of business December 1st, so December 2nd. And we will begin to review those. So anything that's not completed goes against indicator 20 for lateness. So please let us know if you have any concerns around as you're working through that data so we can get it done in a timely fashion. Because that is necessary for us to get it to Susan Shipley. So because Susan Shipley's busy working on the APR at that point, and once we submit it to OSIP, there's no way for us to go back and undo the data. So ODP monitoring, just a reminder that ODP monitoring has started. Many of you have started to get emails from Jenny and Sarah the last few days over ODP monitoring. That is allowing us to go in and start looking. We are going to start looking this year. We're going to do it a little different. Rather than doing it by district, we're going to do it by facility to make it a little easier. We're hopeful this time around on the facilities because they will only have to answer to us in one big fell swoop rather than multiple times throughout the situation. So if you have questions around that, please let Sarah know, Sarah or Gail know, as both of them will be the 2 points of contact on ODP monitoring. Any questions?
So Sheila, it's Nate. I have a quick question. I don't know if you saw my email this morning. The difference, that's okay. The difference between this ODP monitoring that Jenny sent versus the what is it, the 5C within the file review, because in the 5C, if I have a student CBAR-V, you're asking me to submit to you like 3 or 4 pages, like the prior written notice and the LRE. And that one is due by December 2nd. But then I have this email today from Jenny saying that we're going to go in and look at a file. So are these 2 different things, or are they the same thing?
They're 2 different things. What I'm going to say to you is on the 5C stuff, thank you for bringing that up. And now I remember what the other thing was. Susie was like all day, there was something else you wanted to tell him, Sheila, and I could not remember. Under the 5C thing, just go in, Nate, and mark whether or not that kiddo is in your district or not. You do not need to submit any data or documentation to us for 5C in the self-assessment because we will be pulling that through the ODP monitoring. It is just a second check for Sarah and Gail to make sure they're capturing all those kiddos. So it's just a simple yes or no. Either they're in your district yet or they're not, and then we will pull all that data and documentation as we work through those different facilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then just one more piece, because I was in today, because we do have one student that's not in our district. Remember, when you put yes, it does give you that, oh, sorry, my camera's not on. It gives you that narrative, because I like to talk with my hands. Sorry. It gives you that narrative box. So do you still want us to put in the narrative? It says something about what were the barriers or something. So don't do any.
We don't.
Okay. But then to be fair, all of these are very unique situations. So are you guys not looking for a context where we would put in and explain? Or do you come back later if you're like, well, this doesn't make sense, Nate? So,
Yeah,
because
that will come through the monitoring process of the files. So if it doesn't make sense, Sarah and or Gail, or it's Sarah and Gail are going to take the lead on it. But somebody from the monitoring team, if they're looking at that file and it does not make sense, we will reach out to you, Nate. I think we've tried really hard to be sure that we understand context around those, especially ODP kids, before we make any determinations, because they are unique.
and the good news is I'm very incoherent. You guys always understand me. So if you guys can understand me, everybody else will be fine, Wyoming wide.
Thanks for the question, though, because it helped me remind me that that was the other thing that I wanted to bring up. Susie and I did this on Friday afternoon, and apparently I slept since then. And she was like, "What did you want to?" I couldn't remember. So, any other questions? So your reports are in SpedLink. Please go in and look at them. Please let us know by November 15th if you have any data concern. November 14th, sorry, it's a Friday. November 14th. That gives Susan Shipley and I time to work with everybody who may have concerns and have it cleared up before you guys either go on winter breaks or whatever, and so that Susan can begin to get all that data together and formulated for the APR. Susan, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, not really. If the sooner the better, so that we can get do our double check and find out where the discrepancies might lie.
Yeah. Any questions around data? Thank you, Susie, for joining us and being a part of that. With that, I'm going to, oh, Shad, did you have a question?
I do. Just I was just looking at the large school report, and then I looked at my report too. But I noticed that on the gap rate area, it looks like the 2024-25 rates are higher than the target rates, but they all say no. And I saw that on the large school district report, but I'm also seeing that on mine too. Am I reading that wrong, or?
So for indicator 3D, the gap rate, that you have the target and you want the rate to be below the target. So the idea is that the gap between all students and students with disabilities will get smaller over time.
So it's kind of opposite of the proficiency rates.
Yes, it's a tricky one to wrap your head around.
Okay. Thanks. That answers that.
Thank you, Shad. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Susan. Do you want to update anything on SPDIG trainings coming up, or do you have Dina somebody to do that?
Sure. Well, I can do it. So we are doing employability skills. We're taking employability and skills and executive functioning skills, and we are doing a monthly webinar between now and May, focusing in on one skill every time. And I should have had this pulled up, but I did not. But I will tell you when they are. They are on the second Wednesday from 4 to 5. The next one is on interpersonal skills, and it's on November 12th. And you can find the link and the information on the WinWeb public calendar. You'll be able to join those sessions second Wednesday of every month. Also, if you could trickle that down to teachers, gen ed teachers, special ed teachers, even paras, that would be great. We had really good attendance for our first one on October 8th. And so we are really excited about those coming through the SPDIG through the Ascend 307 project. Thanks, Sheila.
And Sheila, I did put the link, all of to register for those and the past one that we just did on October 8th. They can view the webinar that's posted now. And that link is there in the chat for them.
Awesome. Thank you. And Susan, do you want to talk about the teacher trainings that we have?
Sure. So these monthly trainings for you folks are from 2 to 3. And on the same days, every month on the same days from 4 to 5, we're doing, it started out being new teacher training, but really it is special ed training for all teachers. And today is Celine Almanez, and she is going to be talking on ways to better engage families in the special education process. I probably said her last name wrong.
And if they can't make it, they can always find it.
Yes, if you can't make it, it'll always be posted on the WIMWeb under professional development. It takes a couple days after to post those recordings, but they will be up there.
And I've also had in the chat a few of you who are asking for the due dates on those, on your data and stuff. Those are all posted on the public calendar that is on the WinWeb. So I encourage you to keep either add that to your Google Calendar or to your Outlook calendar, because those dates all on there, along with all the things that Susan is talking about. So making sure that you have links to all those trainings. What else do we have? John, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
There's a couple more questions in the chat. The size parameters for small cohort versus medium small cohort.
So the cohorts were developed and determined before I came to the WDE, and my understanding, Susan Shipley, I'm going to rely on you because you were here. We took the 48 districts and divided them by census into four
Correct.
4 groups. So
they have remained the same for many years, 10 plus years at least.
The 60-day evaluations are in SpedLink. So you can go in there and that's where you will write your reasons for any missed 60-day evaluations. Dina, will you pop the WinWeb? Oh, she did it. Thank you. WinWeb is in there. Yeah, let me, who has access? Let me see, I have access at this point.
It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different for the public calendar. It's a little bit different link.
It's also on SpedLink.
Yeah.
So let me show you where you can find it. Let me.
There it is. Yeah, you've got it, Dina. You got both of them, the login and the public calendar. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Also, if you go to SpedLink on the very front page of SpedLink, you don't even have to log in. If you go down to the bottom underneath questions and my name and Catherine's name, it says Sped Division Public Calendar. If you hit that big blue bar, it will also take you to the public calendar. We're preparing for someday when they tell us we can't have the WinWeb anymore. So we wanted to make sure that we got the public calendar up there for everyone. Any other questions before?
I'll jump in just to kind of update of what I know or don't know from what's happening at the federal level. Obviously, most of you are probably aware of some significant changes in the Office of of special education at the U.S. Department of Ed last Friday and through the weekend. It sounds like there was a pretty significant riff of staffing at the U.S. Department of Ed. I don't have much official to report other than what you read in the newspapers. The U.S. Department of Education, to my knowledge, is not putting out any information that is, something we can share. But I did have some parents and some teachers reach out yesterday with concerns of kind of local impact to their child or their school or their, and a couple of key points that I just wanted to communicate with you is, and you probably are getting the same questions, but the message that's been pretty consistent from the Department of Education is that our grant monies, our federal grant monies, are identical to what they were last year. There may be a small change in your allocations, but ultimately that's depending on your census data or your enrollment. So very limited, if any, changes to what we have been awarded. We've been notified we're awarded. That's in the works. I do have a little bit of worry about the distribution of that with no employees either furloughed or not being there, period. But I've tried to comfort people to say the money's there. Our positions, our division at the Department of Education is not anticipating any significant changes in staffing or roles and responsibilities that we do. We are conducting business as usual. And so if anybody has any questions about that will continue. And you know what, Wyoming is very fortunate that special education is a cost-based model at the state level, and costs for services for individuals and IEPs is all reimbursed still at 100%. And so, we're okay for now. I don't see any significant impacts. We're watching and evaluating as news comes out of the Department of Education of any impact that will have on our work. So that's all I have to report on that. And you can ask questions, but you probably have as much information as I do at this point. Hang in there. And my message to everybody is really just try and comfort the fears from parents about services to their kids. And there's no changes to IDEA. There's no changes to what the Department of Ed at the local level or Wyoming is doing. And, you should see limited impact at this point, in your day-to-day operations at the district level. So please help get that message kind of spread around to parents and teachers or anybody who's kind of worried about reading too many headlines and how this is going to impact, that the long-term impact we may have a different conversation, but ultimately that's where we are at the time being. Any questions for me or any of the other folks on the call?
Nate has his hand raised.
So I do have a question about the new Chapter 7, so I can pause real quick if anybody else still wants to follow up on the federal. Or I can jump in with my question.
Go for it.
So just I appreciate the statement of reasons, and we went through a couple things, and maybe, I don't know, like when we do the SPED directors meeting, I haven't looked at that entire schedule at the end of November. Maybe you guys are coming to talk about it. A couple of things, the statement of reason of crosswalk, it doesn't, it appears that the changes to Chapter 7 are actually more substantial than kind of what that says. So when we looked at it with our facilitators, we definitely appreciate maybe the cleaning up a little bit, the reorganization, maybe not repeating things that are IDA, but it does feel like there's state level wording been added to that. And historically, when I came to Wyoming back in 2008, we used to have a out-of-state comparable service plan document. We had a document for every single thing that could happen in Wyoming. And at that time, through that leadership at the time of WDE, they had consultants, they had attorneys, they decided to take all the technical assistance out. So that was the history behind where Chapter 7 came about. and why we have the IEP forms the way we do. A number of SPED directors before, they did insert a little bit of technical assistance in ESY. I think some of us that have been here for a while push back a little bit to say, look, either we're going to do that or we're not going to do that. But when you start to insert suggestions or ideas in the IEP, it kind of changes, I think the why behind our forms the way they are. So just a few things we were reading in the chapter 7, because of some of that wording, and it's not an IDA, it could be subject to now more interpretation. And I think that's more technical assistance rather than should be what they call rule to text. Because once you put it in there, you guys have to enforce that. And that might be more criteria that we have to do on the district side to meet compliance above and beyond IDA. So you don't have to, I know you weren't knowing I was coming with that question, but I think as SPED directors, when they did this before, I know they did a walking tour. That was like between 2008 and 2012. That was under, anyhow, all the, I think Mike Harris was there at the time. Those guys visited, not every district, but they did a pretty big tour of the state. It was some passion in those rooms, but I think everyone started to understand the why. We may not have always agreed, but we understand the why. So that's my biggest worry is it feels like we're putting in wording at the state level. And that is concerning to me. So I appreciate all the work you guys do, but just that's the worry I have.
Thank you, Nate. And, just to respond to that, we are really encouraging people to have a robust public input opportunities. And there's 3.5, 4 years of conversation put into, why something is written a certain way. I certainly am not privy to all those conversations and know the rationale and understanding behind why that made sense at the time. But I can commit to you that we are seriously looking forward to public comment, looking forward to groups getting together and collectively having public comment about certain things that maybe there's some more consensus around. And we by no means say this is going to be the final format, because we're truly allowing this to take place and have people be part of the process as well. And the more eyes that we can get on it and the more history that we can put into those comments and conversation, the more valid those things become. And we've even had discussions about if we go through a public comment period where we make significant changes, of having a second comment period. And so, I like the idea of getting out and having some rationale conversations behind that. And we'll take that thought back and kind of chew on that a little bit.
And I guess the only thing I appreciate that would just be, I do think because instead of doing the red line, you guys were saying that because it was so much of a change, you weren't going to do the red line so that you have this crosswalk. I would just ask that you guys go back and reread that again and really say, does it really tell to a stranger looking at the new chapter 7s that what is described in the crosswalk is all that's been changed? I just feel like the change is much more significant. And if people don't recognize that, you won't get the public input that you want. Even within my team, our school psychologists that are looking at it, there's things that they do like about the new changes. So I don't want you to think there aren't things that it's a wholesale, but there's other things, especially that wording that seems to be more state level wording rather than just sticking to federal wording that does have concerns. And if people don't realize that's there, once it becomes a rule, you can't take it back. And then if it starts to become litigated, or you start to have attorneys or whatever trying to interpret things, because once you put a word out there, we know that federal government, you make a state statute, it doesn't matter what the congressman thought it meant. Now you have attorneys and everyone else interpreting what it means. And that's my only worry is when we add language that's not really in the IDA, we can always risk opening up something we didn't intend to open up. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of a discussion, because sometimes IDA is maybe a little bit non-descriptive, and it leaves room for wide levels of interpretation. I use, for example, an out-of-school suspension or removals for 10 days. It doesn't really give any guidance on how to count those things. Is in-school suspension counted as a removal? And so that's a perfect example of, each one of those sentences in there, there was probably a pretty significant conversation with legal counsel and practitioners on what it actually meant and what's the intent. And, you know, so I hear what you're saying, but sometimes in the absence of description, sometimes giving some clearer guidance is helpful. So, but really, if there's certain areas in there that you feel strongly about, that certainly identify those areas, and we do really look forward to you know, hearing, you know, those comments and being able to make it something that is in alignment with IDA, but also doesn't go above and beyond you know, what expectations are. So please get with your groups or individuals or and read through it carefully. It took 3.5 years to develop. We do have the fortunate timeline of once we get it out for public comment, we'll have some time to process all that. And again, if we make significant changes, we'll probably possibly have a second comment period to see that people, we hear what you're saying, and we've taken into consideration, and here's why it makes sense or why it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions? It's always difficult to have appropriate wait time on a Zoom call. But as always, thank you for your work and really appreciate your efforts to quell concerns, you know, of things outside of Wyoming that are happening that may have some parents up and nervous, you know. And I really appreciate your work and efforts to support our students with disabilities as always. Appreciate you being here and your time, and you guys have a great day and a great rest of the week.
One question.
Okay, go ahead.
So how do you, I know WD keeps anticipating their own audit visit here, maybe late this year, early this spring. You think all that will be pushed back? Have any idea or?
Well, trust me, it has crossed my mind that with no staff, maybe that looks an entirely different process, but we're proceeding as though things are as is, as we know it. And I think I would encourage you to do the same thing. Until we know for sure what changes are being made, you know, we're anticipating our OSEP visit next October. And so there's probably a lot of news between now and then that may adjust that, but we're planning until we hear differently that that's going to happen.
Okay.
All right, everybody, have a great week. We appreciate your time. Thank you, Sheila and Susie and Susan and Dina for supporting the meeting, and hope you have a great week.